Welcome back with the Power Perception Podcast. It is your host, Moala. We have the privilege today of being joined by former Ute, former Kearns Cougar, and also former SUU Thunderbird, right?
Yeah.
Fatu, Moala. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
One of my favorite questions to ask for a lot of people who played the sport of football was, when's the first time you got playing the sport of football?
I think growing up, I've got a lot of times, but been able to like recover. I think the biggest one, the most memorable one, was actually in college. We actually played against Utah State. I was at SEU. I don't remember his name. This Ululi guy, this corner. This dude was nice, man, and it's like I couldn't really figure anything out to kind of beat him, and it was kind of late into the game, and I was getting a little frustrated, and so it was a run that I remember was going away from us, and both of us were kind of jogging away, and I'm like, this is my time to get him back, and so I lowered my shoulder and I tried to sideblind him, and I hit him, and I caught him off guard, but it didn't even phase him. And this dude went and hit me back, and he's like, hey, hit the weight room, little man. And like, I had nothing to say. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I like ran back and was like, dang. And so like that thing, that's like the first guy that got me that I like had no answer to. Like, dang.
Man,
I think he made it to the league. I want to say I'm trying to talk him up to make it look like he was good.
Well, whenever I went for 1 year before my mission to Utah State. I think the best corner at the time was a guy by Nevin Lawson.
Lawson, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, freak that guy.
he ended up playing in the league. I think he got drafted by the Lions.
He was good. Yeah.
I remember all the receivers
Lawson
would always say, he's like, dude, Nevin holds every play. And what he does is he's really smart. He's like, he's going to force the ref to call PI the whole game. Like, every single play, he's going to force her. Either you're going to call it or you're just going to let us play physical the whole entire game. So that was kind of like his mentality. But I heard that a lot from a lot of the guys who played on the team.
Yeah, thanks for opening up that wound, dude. He was solid. That dude was solid.
That's what's up, man. That was dope. So, one of the basis of the podcast is, Polynesians in sports, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I really like to focus on is your journey. How did you get into sports, whether it was football, basketball, soccer? What was your kind of introduction into that?
Mine was actually soccer. I was probably different from everyone else. So my dad, I think I was in like second or third grade. My dad put me into soccer to get me in shape for football. He puts me in, and I was like actually pretty good at it. And soccer and football and Little League, they're at the same time. And so I just played soccer every single year. And we used to go to the Bowling Ward, the White Ward. And then when I got into 6th grade, we switched over to the Tongan Ward. And we'd be like sitting around on Sunday, and all the boys were talking about the football game on Saturday. And I was the only one that couldn't talk with them. And so I went and talked to my dad. I'm like, hey, can I play football? And he it was like caught him off guard, and he's like, what? I'm like, I want to play football. And he's like, all right, but you're not quitting soccer. So I did both. And so I would have to go and play in the football game first or the soccer game first, and then straight to the football game after. But my very first year, we went undefeated and we won state. And I'm like, I love football. And so I played basketball too, but it wasn't until I got into high school is when I kind of transitioned all of my time over to football. I still played soccer and basketball and track in high school, but it's like I knew I was gonna try to take football more serious.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Often, like here, especially a lot of guys who play professionally, they always advocate for cross training.
Yeah.
Right. So athletes who play multiple range of sports is the skill set you need in basketball is necessarily not the same one you need for football. but one can help you with
Yeah,
the other.
yeah, it definitely
Kind of give
translates.
your
Yeah.
take, I guess.
And at the time, I was always like, man, I never get an off season, like, because in high school now the seasons are all different.
Yeah.
And so when these guys were just playing football, they'd get an off season, for those 2 other seasons, and I always thought to myself, like, dang it, man, those guys are lucky. I never get an off season. I'm always in season. But looking back now, I'm like, I think that prepared me the most to be able to. The speed and agility training year round is great. And again, I didn't see it as a blessing until I had moved past that. So um, I like to think that I was a little bit more versatile than the kids.
That's dope. I kind of want to dive into your upbringing, where you came from, your family. So
Yeah.
just kind of give us a rundown of who is Fatu Moala from that perspective.
Yeah, I come from a small town called Kearns, and Kearns Cougars. If you're from there, you take a lot of pride in where you're from, but we don't come from much. But I guess even further back than that, my parents are both Tongan. They both came from Tongan, so um, just where I'm at right now in my life, like being a parent, seeing like what they did, it's like, dang, I feel bad. Like there's a lot that I need to do still to make sure that everything that they've sacrificed to get us here, there's a lot that needs to be done in order for me to, in my head, I'm sure these guys are very proud of what has happened, but I'm like, man, I don't want all those sacrifices to go in vain. So along with my parents leaving from nothing to come here for a better life, I too come from nothing, being from Kearns. So I hold a lot of pressure on myself to try to live up to all that sacrifice that my parents did.
Oh man, I feel like that's like the narrative of most first generation Tongan Americans
Yeah.
living here in the States.
Yeah.
Um, I asked you when I texted you if you could say there was a certain characteristic from the city of Kearns that you feel like is synonymous with who you are.
Yeah.
What would that characteristic be?
Again, I like take so much pride in where I'm from, and I think the reason why is like you we don't need a lot to make something happen. And so I think a lot of people, they get things handed to them or donated to them, and same thing with the town that I'm from. There's not a lot, and so just the smallest crack in the door, that's all we need to make something happen. Because again, we're not used to having a lot, and so I take that now into everything that I've got going on right now in my life, is just making sure that if there's a sliver of hope, then I think that's plenty for me to make something happen.
That's dope. I think being resourceful is one thing Polynesians can
Yeah.
hang their hat on, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, like even like growing up. I remember when we first moved from Texas. I was telling you how my dad just had like a leap of faith to come
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
We had, so my parents kind of it's like the same with a lot of Tongan Polynesian parents. They super humble. So we moved here and lived with my first cousins in West Valley. We weren't even here for a month, and my parents were like, we can't stand the fact of being dependent on someone else.
Yeah.
Mind you, at the time, I don't think my dad had a job yet. My mom wasn't working, but with whatever money they had saved up from when we had left Texas, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with it was 5 kids and my parents.
Dang.
And so the boys, we all slept. So there's 2 small couches in the living room. It's
Yeah.
probably the size of where we are right now. And so we'd be sleeping like in the L shape.
Yeah.
With my little brothers.
Yeah.
While my sisters, 2 of them were sharing one room, and then my parents had the other.
Dang.
And so, yeah, sacrifice. I think
Yeah.
that's something we're all really accustomed to. So growing up in Kearns, right? You come from a place where humble beginnings. It kind of like carves you, molds you into who you are today.
Yeah.
Who would you say were, older people in the community that you looked up to? Not necessarily like a close family member, but maybe someone in your ward, someone who was playing at the high school at the time. Maybe you try to model your game after stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I I was so busy with what I had going on, again playing the three sports,
Mm-hmm.
that I actually never went up to like the high school games and watched them.
Wow,
And,
that's
and
crazy.
so like when you say not like close family, like that's all I seen. And so the people that kind of pushed me and gave me good examples, like firsthand, are actually both of my brothers. So my oldest brother, he's more like me. This dude is always into fashion. He had the nicest stuff, the shoes, and he was really really good at sports. It came natural for him, and so seeing that was like he paved the way, kind of carving that stuff out and making sure that uh, I had something to look up to. I don't know if he knew that at the time, but then my middle brother, who's right in between us two, he was like the funny one, and he worked his butt off too in whatever it is that he did. And so I had really really good examples in front of me, and so um, we talked about this before. Like being from Kearns, like there wasn't a lot really that was going on. Not too much people to.
Make it out per se.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so again, like when it goes back to like just a sliver of a chance is all you need. Is like when I seen that, I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's normal. Like when my brother, he was playing at Dixie back when they were JC, and they were nice. They were good. And so going to those games and seeing that environment, I'm like, these dudes were dominating. And I'm like, man, my brother's so cool. Like that's what I want. And so just planting that seed early on, it did come from the home. It's just it wasn't always um, like how to carry yourself in the home, but more so what you did outside. And so um, actually pretty close motivation.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Your brothers. Ah, man, I just have a question. So, um, how are you guys related to with the Moala boys that were like coming up in Cali, playing at SC and whatnot? You guys related to them in
No,
any way?
no, I don't think we like. Everyone's always like quick
Yeah.
to claim the family that's good. I'm like, oh yeah, SC, maybe we are. But I'm embarrassed to say again that like I don't know too much about anything other than sports. And so it's like if you're not my first cousin, I probably won't claim you. I don't know. I'd hate to be that guy like, yeah, that's my cousin. It's like, nah, they're not. I don't think so. I don't think we are. I have to get back to you on that one. I don't
All right,
know.
all right. That just came across my mind as you were talking about your brothers. What's funny is I actually have like a very similar relationship with my younger brother, Mata. So he's playing up at Utah State right now. But whenever I was in high school, I was like lazy, but I was talented for the most part.
Yeah,
I just never put the work in to get the most out of my potential.
for
So
sure.
get back from my mission, and I see my little brother starting to make a lot of the same mistakes that I did. I was like, okay, I didn't put any energy into myself. Let's put some energy into your little brother.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
good.
like, he ended up making a lot better decisions because I
Good.
was kind of in his ear telling,
But
hey,
but that's
yeah,
now the beauty of being somewhere and being able to help out.
yeah,
That's you saved all of that information that you had
yeah,
for the next one. That's good.
yeah. So, you talked about like guys who inspired you within your family.
Yeah.
Let's kind of get into your high school career per se. I feel like for a lot of guys, it's either one or the other. In high school, you either like you're the guy, like you arrive on the scene, and then you're just most part like you're better than like most of the kids you play with,
Yeah.
or comes a point in time where like you make that jump and then you're ready to start making a lot of plays. Which one do you feel like you were in a sense?
I think I was the first one. So my dad kind of seen where Kearns was, and kind of from my older siblings, he wanted me to get away from that. So actually, when I was going into my ninth grade year, he took me over to Wasatch on the east side.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I went to
That's
school over
crazy.
there because he was trying to get me to feed right into Skyline. So I do my whole ninth grade year at Wasatch, and then going into the summer, getting into my sophomore year, I was at the camp, and I'm like probably 80 pounds. Like, and these dudes had me at a fullback, like not even the running back. I'm like, damn. So they had me blocking, and I went and stayed after, and I talked to the coach, and I was like, hey man, like I want to be a running back. Like I'm normally a receiver, but I want to be a running back because I'm not big enough. And he's like, we'll throw you the ball if we have a good enough receiver. And so I'm like, damn. So I was like struggling with that. Like, how am I gonna make this thing work? Because Skyline wasn't throwing the ball. Like they were handing that stuff off. And so I expressed my concerns with my dad, talking about it. And what's crazy too is Kearns had just gotten a new coach from Texas, Bill Cosper. And so one day I come home, and there's this big, bald white guy at my house, like taking up my mom's couch. I'm like, the heck is this? And then the rest of the coaching staff was there, and he explained who he was and what he was doing, and like trying to shift the culture over. And it was kind of like a sign to probably come back. And so, although I was much smaller than everyone else, I think I'd found what I was really good at, which was like the agility, and so it came easy for me. Growing up playing sports my whole life, it was easy for me to pick it up pretty fast, and so I was the guy where I was one of the more developed as far as like skill wise on the field, but the attitude was bad. I'm like, damn, I can go 60% and still be one of the best out here. And I did that. Like I feel bad because I look back now on things that I didn't understand at the time. I went 60% and I was cool. But it's like there's so much more that I could have done, just like you were saying,
Yeah.
to progress that skill. And the jump then from there, from high school to college, now going to University of Utah, like guys like with like Star, I'm like, dang.
Some grown men out here.
Yeah, and I'm barely a buck 50 when I graduate, and I can't even bench a plate. And yeah, it was a rude awakening. And shortly after is when that Ty Lawson got me, dude.
That's funny.
So
No, so when we moved here, my parents kind of had like the same type of visions. Like, we want to get you guys kind of away from where all the polys are at making bad decisions.
yes,
And
yes,
moved us over to Sandy, and then we ended up going to Alta. And so I remember seeing you guys play because we were still in the same region at the time with you guys.
yeah.
And I remember shortly after. So did you? Let's kind of go back. So in high school, you played at Kearns. What was the recruiting process like for you?
It was non-existent.
No, like, because I think a lot of people kind of look at, if I don't get a D1 offer or
Yeah.
go JUCO, or you know what I mean, like people actually actively looking at me, I can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, so
Talk about that aspect of what
yeah,
your route you took.
there was nothing actually. Snow College is probably the only school that came out and talked, and when they did, they talked to my running back, Alamoti Vainuku.
Multi was
He's
bad.
a baller, and then they talked to there's another lineman, but I'm like, I wasn't even in the question, like, who's this scrawny dude? Like, so they talked to them, and that was as close as it ever was. I went to a couple like the Utah camps and stuff, and I did all right, but and Aaron A-Rod is the man, but he was talking to me a little bit in high school, but I mean, again, there's nothing. These dudes got some big recruits, and so the only reason I ended up at Utah is really because of my older brother. He's good with all the boys in there, and I was able to get a preferred walk-on offer over there. And so when I did, walk on. I didn't even make it into to camp. They only take what is it, like 150 or 130 to camp, and I missed it. So I'm like just hanging out at the house, and um, I'm hanging out at the house with my brother, and he gets a call, and he's like, "Hey, we gotta go." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "They just called. One of the kids quit." And so I was the very next one in line. So then that's how I got into camp. And again, my my brother did a huge part in a lot of the opportunities that I was able to get. And now it's like up to me to keep them or to stay there. So um, that's why I didn't have anything. Decided to walk on at Utah, and I mean it was great. It was a really good experience playing at Notre Dame, like big games, you know. Um, but I couldn't afford school, and Coach Witt, we kind of butt heads over there. He tried to switch me over to safety, and I was like a diva, and I'm like, no, I'm a receiver. So he switched me over for a week, and I was complaining to A Rod, and um, A Rod came one day, and he's like, hey man, how you feeling? I was like, yeah, I'm all right, you know, like pouting, and he's like, good, because I got you back at receiver. I'm like, for real? So it was a really good time, but um, from then my plays went down.
You're on the outs.
Yeah, Luke Matthews was actually in front of me, and I was getting about like 30 reps a game on offense, starting on two special teams. And then once I was towards the end, when we got freaking worked against Boise State in the Las Vegas Bowl. I only went in one rep in that game, and so I'd kind of seen where my career was going with the U, and even Luke Matthews came up to me after the game, and he apologized, and he's like, hey man, like the higher up is telling me not to go out, not to take any breaks. And so I remember that off season, Aaron Roderick was the one that he called me, and he's like, hey man, like I talked to Weber State and SUU, and they're both gonna give you a full ride. Let them talk with you and recruit you. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay here. Like I'm just gonna work my butt off and get a scholarship. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like you probably won't get one until your senior year, if that. And to this day, I'm very grateful for A Rod for opening up like that to me, because I don't think SUU or Weber even knew about me. And Aaron Roderick goes and puts the word in, and these guys are like, oh yeah, we'll offer you. So I call Weber State, and they don't answer the phone. I call SU, and Ed Lamb's like, yeah man, if you're eligible, we'll give you a full ride. I'm like, guess I'm going to
Cool.
Cedar City. Yeah. So I mean, it was I've had so many good people around me that were willing to help me, that like where my mind was at the time, I had no idea like what was going on, and just like small nudges like here and there, like, okay, go and do this. And so I transferred to SUU, and again, like playing in these big stadiums against BYU, Notre Dame, and it's like, and now I moved to SUU, and it's like
Downsize. Yeah.
regular classrooms. Like my locker room at Kearns is like the same as the locker room at SUU, and I'm over here like, what am I doing? And kind of trying to be like that big man on campus, like a diva, man. I feel bad that I went in with that attitude, and those guys, they fixed me quick. They don't care who you are, and we worked really really hard, and I went from being, you know, like another player at Utah to being one of the main players at SU. So a blessing in disguise. I'm so grateful that I made the change, and I'm grateful that Coach Lamb took a chance on me without even, I don't even think he knew me. So shout out to Ed Lamb doing big things over there at BYU. I'm very grateful for taking a chance on me.
That's dope. I think there's a lot of things you can take from that part of your journey, right? I talk with my little brother pretty much every day, and he'll come to me and be like, "Hey, like, man, like coach is holding me in this, or like, this is doing that and that," and like just making excuses, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I usually, like, the first thing I do is like, okay, what separates you from the guy in front of you? And then he's just like, it's like, what do you mean? He's like, if you guys both got 10 snaps, he's like, who makes more plays, you or him? And then he was, like, I remember one time he was just like, well, see, and I was just like, stop explaining. Like,
Yeah.
give me a straight answer.
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, I can't really say it. He's like, well, when you were in high school, this is what I told you to do. He's like, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're gonna be like everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
if you're doing more than everyone else, you should expect to be better than everyone else.
Right.
It's like, has that mentality carried over to college? And he was just like, he kind of got quiet for a second. I was like, so, you know, until that changes, then you can call me back.
Yeah.
And if you still have the same problems, then we'll see what happens from there.
For sure.
And so, like, a lot of it was just like, you know, it's like controlling what you can control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good.
I think something I want to ask you is, so I had a younger cousin who went to, who walked on at Utah a couple of years back, and I was getting ready to drop him off at school. I was like, so how you feeling about football, bro? And he's like, man, I'm trying to get a scholarly. I'm trying to be a playmaker. I'm trying to do things.
Yeah.
And then I was like, cool. It was like, man, like some of these dudes, like I don't even know why they walking on. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I was asking one of the other walk-ons, like, hey, bro, like, man, you guys ready for this year? And he's just like, man, I'm just happy to get a jersey. And he's like, what? Like, the disrespect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, really.
It's like, man, we come out here and do this, and I've been working my ass off all summer.
Yeah.
It's like I'm here to make plays, bro. And then
Yes,
the kid he was with was just like, oh.
yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? But he comes from Texas football, so that's kind of the mentality that they have out there. Maybe going to that part of, you know, what was your mindset in terms of grinding for football?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the kids get in trouble making the jump from high school to college is because it's like, damn, I just want a jersey. Yeah. I want to sit on the sideline. I want to be a part of this, the brotherhood. But it's like there's so much more that goes into it. There's so many people that would die to go and have this opportunity. And what you're trying to do is like, yeah, I'm just trying to skate by. Like I'm just trying to blend in is all it is. And so I think that when I transferred from Utah to SUU, a lot of people are like, man, you're stupid. And me too. I'm like, what am I doing? But it's like, I want to play, you know? And in my head, in my heart, I feel like I was good enough to compete and perform at that high level of Utah. But just like you said, control what you can control. I'm not going to go over there and beg for time or like, hey, man, why are you being unfair to me? It's like, okay, if my goal is to get to the league, it doesn't matter if it's from the U or SUU. I'm gonna go and try to get to the league. And so if it's a better opportunity, a better avenue for me to go through SUU, why wouldn't I? That'd be foolish of me to think that it's only through SUU or through Utah. And so I think that because I was undersized and because I feel like that was a mistake by not allowing me to play over there at the U, it's like I got a chip on my shoulder. I gotta prove something. And I think that kind of like what you said with your dad making that jump, it's like when your back is up against the wall, it's like that's when you level up to another part of you that you could not get to in your comfort zone, like when everything is good. And so I used to be afraid and shy away from like uncomfortable situations, and not that I'm comfortable with them now. They're still uncomfortable. I just know that when you are uncomfortable, there's something really, really good that's about to happen. And so I take pride in taking chances right now in my life because I've seen that stuff pay off. And so I wasn't mature enough to see it at the time. I'm like, man, these dudes are like, why is this happening to me? And now it's like I'm like built for this stuff now. Like moving from Utah to Idaho again, people are like, well, you're stupid. Like, what are you doing? But they don't know like the plans that I have in my head for me and my family. So it's easy for me to go and make that jump. So,
man, I remember like just going off what you said in terms of like you know, kind of taking uncomfortable steps, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I started the podcast in, um, 2020 June 1st was when I first posted. It was an audio that like had so much like background and white noise in it that you couldn't even hear what was actually being said. And I was like so afraid to take that first step. And my wife was just like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, eventually, if you really care about doing something like this, you're going to learn, you're going to put the time in, and you're going to get better at it.
Yeah.
And how it came to be was funny was actually, she said, it's like, man, you've been talking about doing something creative or finding a passion project like this for the longest time. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, we're here in the pandemic. We're doing absolutely nothing. It's like, you have all the time in the world. It's like, if you come out of this pandemic and you haven't accomplished anything new, it's like, I don't want to hear another excuse really. And I was just like,
tough love. That's good.
it's like, all right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so, going through the pandemic, I was like, literally just YouTube. I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this?
Yeah.
Just hours and hours and hours. And my wife was like, if I know your time is being used to be like something that's useful,
Yeah.
like, I don't mind you getting lost on your laptop for 6 hours trying to learn something new.
Yeah.
Get better at. And so, like being uncomfortable, I feel like, just that, like in terms of, I don't even know if this is just Polynesians. I think it's just people in general. Like how we see things is like, it's very, it's just different. Like not many people are like willing to take first steps, and you're
For
gonna
sure.
take a whole lot of L's.
For sure. Yeah. And there've been a lot of L's, and I think, I think, like with the Polynesian people, is it's almost like our parents took that big step, that scary leap of faith, and so it's like, let us enjoy those fruits from their labors, and I think that's kind of where we almost get in trouble with that. I think for me, it's like I'm not gonna let my parents' sacrifice go in vain. It's like pressure that I put on myself, and so I feel like I still have that athletic competition mentality, and it's like I compete against myself now to see like, okay, what else can you do? Like, and so I'm sad to say that I don't go and play against other people too often, and so like I'm in my own head about what it is that I can accomplish. So
That's dope. So let's kind of fast forward to the last part of your career. So you're at SUU.
yeah.
How did your career end up playing?
Well, after I got locked down against Utah State against a really good corner, I went and hit the weight room, started working out, and I performed my pro day at Utah because SU didn't have one at the time. We were small. There wasn't too many big recruits that were coming out, and so I go to Utah and I perform my pro day, and I feel like I did really well. And my agent had some big names, and I was very, very low on the list, and so we didn't talk too much, and I felt like I was almost bugging him because again I was very, very low on his list, and so the draft had come and gone, and it was I think I was we were in the last round, and my agent texted me and said, hey, stay close to your phone. Like Green Bay's on the fence with you and another kid from Utah State. I think it was it was another wide receiver. After that had gone through, they had worked a deal out with the Utah State receiver, and I was like crushed after that. I'm like, okay, like I'm done then. And so I was in my head now about being done and sad, feeling sad for myself, and so stopped working out, stopped eating right, and I'm not really doing anything, and it's like 3 months of that, and then I'm at Harriman Lake with my nephews, and we're like driving back, and I get a text from my agent. Haven't heard from him in 3 months, and this dude's like, "Hey, how you feeling?" And my heart like dropped, it's like when you're leaning back on the chair and someone fakes like they're gonna push you. Like my heart really sunk, and because I knew something was up, and I was like, holy cow. And so I text back and I'm like, hey, I'm good. Why, what's up? And he's like, I'm working on something with Green Bay. So after he had sent that text,
Drop him off.
like 2 minutes, I get a call from Green Bay, Wisconsin, an unknown number. And I'm like, no way. So I pick up the phone while I'm driving home, and they're like, yeah, we're going to fly you out in 3 days. And I'm like, holy cow. So I'm like goosebumps. I'm like tripping. And I hang up and I call my trainer, and I'm like, hey, what do I do? And he's like, don't lift. You're not gonna get stronger in 3 days. Just run. So I'm back at Kearns High every morning and every night running gassers. Like my lungs are on fire, like killing myself. And the 3 days come, and I jump on the plane, and they try out a kid from Purdue and me, the only two. And it's like rapid fire stuff. Like they're like, hey, go. Like after they had us do our 5-10-5 and our 40, it's like rapid fire drills. And I was so out of shape and so like overwhelmed with this opportunity that I didn't even get to like enjoy it. Like I'm so like in my head, I'm like, my whole family is counting on me. Like my whole childhood, I'm the youngest, and my brothers and sisters are like, hey, you need to drop that because you need to make sure Fatu gets to soccer practice or Fatu needs to go to football practice. Like I came first in everything, and now it's here. Like I'm gonna make sure that my family, all those sacrifices were for something. Because I go home and I tell my family, and they're like screaming. The girls are crying. My dad's crying. Like I knew it. Like everyone is cheering for me. And then I get there and I'm gassed, dropping balls. The routes were sloppy. Like I wouldn't have picked me either. And both of us, he pretends like he gets hurt. So he sits out, and I'm pretty sure it's because he was gassed too. So they don't care. They're running me now back to back. And again, the tryout was horrible, the way that I performed. And they pull us in, and they cut me. I'm like, they pull him in first, and I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to bring him in first because they're going to cut him. He comes out sad, and I'm like, yup, it's my turn. I go in there, and they cut me, and I'm like, wait, what?
Y'all both could get cut.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm like, damn, they cut us? And right after they cut us there, throw us back on the plane and out. And on the bus to the airport, like, I text my brother, my dad, and my wife, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry I didn't make it. And these guys are like, what are you sorry for? Like, we're so proud of you. And when I said that I'm sorry, it's not because I wasn't good enough. I'm like, I'm sorry that I took those 3 months off feeling sorry for myself. Like, who am I to think that like a small receiver from a small school that didn't put up great numbers would go and get drafted or sign a deal right after? Like that was foolish of me to think that. And so I'm like, again, feeling sorry for myself, and then I stop training, and then this opportunity comes, and I drop the ball. Like I played sports my whole life, and I think I was like 22 maybe, and done. Like they're like, all right, sports are done, like go and do something else, like. So I'm like, damn, like I really don't know who I am without a ball. And people are cheering for you when you have opportunities, like everyone's rooting for you, like, yeah, go represent Kearns. I get all those text messages when they find out that I get a Green Bay tryout. No one's talking to me after that. Like, and I come back to SUU, and I got to go back to school and finish, and I'm like, damn, like so embarrassed I am of myself, and I was in a really, really dark place mentally, trying to finish school and still go and coach because my heart is still in the game, and I'm like sleeping like 12 hours a day, like, and my wife is going to school full time, working full time, and watching the kids. I got 2 kids at this time. Like, what a bum I was to have my wife go through that while I'm like feeling sorry for myself. And then I like finally snapped out of it. I feel like I stayed in that depression stage longer than I should have. And she let me. She was cool with it, like still like fighting to keep everything together. Um, and finally when I like snapped out of it, I'm like, everything here is because of me. And if this is who put me here, I definitely can pull myself out. I'm like, I jumped back into the whole like competitive aspect of it, but it was more so it's like, okay, what can I do to help out of this? And so um, we we moved back to Salt Lake, and um, that's kind of when I'm like, I gotta go and get a normal job. And I'm like, I've never had a like an actual normal job in my life. I've always been doing stuff on the side here and there during my off seasons from football, and now I gotta go and be a grown up with a wife and two kids. And so um, I work at a trucking company, and I'm like, it's cool at first. I'm like competing. When I go and unload the trucks, I'm like, I'm gonna be the best one here. I unload the trucks fast. I stock everything. I'm like, I still have that drive now. Like it's come back to me and it's new. And so I move up pretty fast into the company. And I go from working in the warehouse to being the warehouse manager. And then the next step now for me is I get promoted to go and work sales in the front counter. And the only one that's in front of me from there in that department is sales on the phone. And that's where you make the big bucks. So I'm like right there. And I still have like that, like, damn, there's something more for me out there. And I tell my wife about it. I'm like, man, I wanna train. I wanna train kids, because that's still, that void is still there with me. Like I missed out on something. Um, and she's like, well, don't you have that friend that like trains? I'm like, oh, Jordan Pendleton. I do have that friend that trains, because I had trained with him, trying to go and make it to the league. And so I hit him up and I'm like, hey man, like if you ever needed help with any kind of training, like let me know. I'd be willing to help. And he texts me back and he's like, I didn't know you wanted to do this stuff. And he's like, are you certified? And he's like, did you go to school for this? I'm like, no, I went to school for graphic design. Like in reality, I went to school to play football. Like I never thought that football would end. And excuse me, he said, well, come and intern for me while you try to go and get certified, while you learn some stuff. So I'm like, well, all right, well, when do you need me? And he's like, from 3 until 8. I'm like, I'm still at work until 5:30. So what I do is I go and ask my boss, and again, I'd worked my butt off to get it there. It's been 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so me working my butt off and working up into the company, I put some value on myself. And so when I go and ask these guys, I'm like, hey, I've got an opportunity to intern for something that I love, but they need me there by 3. Can I leave here at 2:30? But I brought it up to them, but I'll work Saturdays. So I'll go Monday through Saturday, but it's from 7 to 2:30, and then I go from 2:30, I leave to go there, and I make it there by 3, and I go from 3 to 8, sometimes 9 for that last group, and they say yes. So I'm working 6 days a week, going back and forth, and then Jordan comes to me and he's like, hey man, I have a trainer that quit, and he's like, do you think that like you want to take this thing serious? So I'm like, oh shoot. So I go and I tell my wife, I'm like, Brittany, I think I need a jump. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, Jordan just got a trainer that had left. And I'm like, if I want to do this training thing and Jordan's not going to give me this spot, I got to go and like intern at Vasa and put in all those hours before I can even do anything. Like this is a shortcut to get me in. And she's like, she was worried. And my wife, for the most part of her life, has played it pretty safe. And I feel like I'm a dog that's on a leash, and she let me go. and so
when you said that, I was like, oh, that's I 100% understand.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
And so I jump. I go and I turn my 2 weeks in, and the day comes for me to leave, and every single one of those guys in that Freightliner are like, you are you're gonna leave this career job to go and be a trainer? Like, are you an idiot? And all these guys are old guys who are miserable. Their bank accounts are fine, but they're miserable and they're old, and that's not something that is of interest to me. And so for a split second, I really thought, what am I doing? Like, I'm an idiot. Like, I really am dumb. And I jumped anyways. And when I jumped, my wife had to move back to full time working nights. We moved back in with my in laws in the basement. It wasn't even in a room, it was in the living room. And my father in law is the man because he built walls. Is just like this here. Just built walls here, yeah, sheetrock, yeah. And like, it was enough for us, to make it work. And so I jump over there, and I hope no one thinks that I'm over here like trying to talk bad. All I'm doing is telling my story.
Yeah.
The money wasn't even a quarter of what was promised to me before I left. And so now I see my first paycheck of $300 for a whole month, and I'm like, oh, Brittany's gonna kill me. I had convinced her that I need to leave, and I got a $300 check, and I got a wife and 2 kids. Like, I'm an idiot. This is what I'm thinking in my head. Like, holy cow, those guys at Freightliner were right. I am an idiot. And I was so scared, and I was butting heads with the head guy. And keep going. And I was miserable, but I was so scared because of me telling my wife that this is something I needed to do, and it seemed like it was a bad idea because of that first paycheck. And so I was very disappointed in what I'd done, and back to almost like dang it, like down on myself, like really doubting myself on what I could do. And I think my wife had picked up on it a little bit, and so she was like, well, why don't you just leave? Like, you already left a career safe job for this one here. And she's like, you can work at McDonald's and you'll make more money. Like, why are you afraid to leave? And once I'd got the okay from her, I'm like, all right, I still do love training, but I got to make this thing work. And so I left. I jumped and started training by myself, just receivers. At first, it started with my nephews in the garage. So my father-in-law let us take over the garage, and we put some weights in there, and I'm doing speed and agility stuff with my nephews, and taking jobs like here and there. And the clientele slowly started to build up from there. And I had to work to FedEx at nights too, to cover obviously the loss. And so I'm training, I'm trying to run my own clothing line, and I'm working at FedEx at night, like grinding, just trying to make it work, because I'm like, dang it, like a part of me wanted to go back to Freightliner where it was safe, but like my pride was like, nah, like, can you imagine what those guys would say if I stepped back in that building? Like, we told you. And so I was grinding it out, and one of the guys that I have my own clothing line, and I press my own shirts out, and one of my brother's good friends, who's I'm grateful for this guy, Will. He had started the Alpha Academy. Yeah. Will is the man. Yeah. And he asked me if I can make shirts for him. This dude was probably throwing me a bone because I needed work. So I'm like, yeah, I can make shirts for you. I print out all the shirts for him, and I go and drop it off, and he's like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, nothing, what's up? And he's like, you want to come help out with my camp? I'm like, all right, cool. So I go over there just thinking that I'm just going to direct traffic. Then when I get there, he's like, hey, have you ever trained kids before? I'm like, yeah, my nephews. And he's like, can you put them through a warm-up? I'm like, all right, cool. So I put him through a warm-up. And Alpha training is their lineman. That's what he specializes in. Yeah. There's one receiver that showed up, and he's like, hey, can you take care of this dude? I was over there like training my guts out. And none of it was like, oh, this is my resume, I'm going to show out for this dude. It's just like, this dude needs help. I get practice, I'm gonna do it. So I'm over there like coaching him like my life depended on it, and Will had come back and forth and seen that, and he's like, "Hey man, a couple of days later, he's like, I got a job out in Idaho to run a speed and agility camp." He's like, we'll go there 2 days a week, Monday and Tuesday. We'll come back Tuesday night, and then we'll come back again Sunday the next week for the whole month. He's like, "You want some extra cash?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need it." And so we jump in the car and we go out there, and the very first day, it gets rained out. Like all these kids had paid for it already, and they got rained out, and they knew the owner of this gym that's out there in Rigby, Idaho, and they're like, "Hey, Mike, can we come and train the kids in here? These kids paid for this camp already, and we're rained out." And Mike is like, "Yeah, for sure." So I got like 60 kids in there. My first time, I've only been training my nephews. I only trained that one single receiver at the camp, and now I got 60 kids training speed and agility. And I go in there and I'm like, man, I was paying tithing or something because I was on it, like working all the kids, telling them this, do this, do this. And Mike, the owner, comes in and he's like, "Hey, who is that kid?" And Will and I'm like, "Oh, that's our dude. That's who brought him. That's who we brought him up here." And they offered me the job on the first day. They said, "Hey man, you want like, how do you like Idaho?" I'm like, it's cool." They're like, "Would you ever live here?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." And Mike's like, "What if I let you run my gym?" I'm like, dang. So I'm like, so we're driving home and I'm looking outside all these grass fields like, damn, I'm really about to come out here to Idaho. And I get home to my wife and she's like, "Hey, how was it?" I'm like, "It was cool." I'm like, I think we need to talk though. And she's like joking around. She's like, "What, we're gonna move to Idaho?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And my girls, I have a really good friend, Griff McNabb. He's from Pocatello, Idaho, and we met at the U together, and we both transferred to SUU together. Really good friend of mine. And I always tell them stories about Griff and how he owns land and horses. And now my kids think that everyone in Idaho automatically gets horses. And so when I tell them about this idea, and my wife is like, "What the heck?" The girls are like, "Yeah, let's move. Let's go to Idaho." They're on board right away. And my wife was just like, she was scared, she was nervous, but she's just like, "This is what we really like grinded for, this past year." And we didn't do it knowing that we were gonna go and run a gym in a year. It's just like, this is what we have to do to make this thing work, and we ran with it. And life is really good now for us. I'm so blessed that I wear gym shorts and t-shirts, and that's my work attire. I get to teach kids for a living how to beat the defender in front of them. Like, how cool is that? I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. And so I now get to tell the kids that story that hurt me, the Green Bay one, that like serves as, listen, when you see all these kids with scholarships posting on Twitter that they got scholarships and you're feeling sorry for yourself because you don't have one, what if you're not training now and a school comes to look at you and you're not ready? Like, I can speak to these kids from experience, personal experience, like of my failures. And so I blessings in disguise is what I've got, and that's what the Green Bay thing was. Hopefully that will never go in vain, because I will be able to help as many kids as possible, like see that and be like, damn, okay. Because I mean, it's one thing when your dad's telling you, who cares, go work, but when they see someone that physically has been there before, I'm like, look, this is where I made my mistake. This is what you can do to fix that. And when the kids, when they hear it, when you're speaking like from the heart and it's not rehearsed from a book, they automatically can read like who you really are.
Yeah, there's a quote that says, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And that's probably exactly what they feel.
And I love it too. Like, I'm telling these dudes, like, this is not, I'm blessed enough right now to where I still can show them what it should look like. But and that's when the respect now transitions over because they're like, yeah, whatever, and I show them like, oh, now they'll pay attention. And then when I tell the story of it, it's like that's just confirmation that I can help you get to where you want to go. Like growing up, I didn't have a trainer. I go and watch YouTube soccer commercials. I'll go and see that stuff, and then I'll go outside and practice until I got it. Or inside, like around my mom's table. My mom hated it. Like juggling through basketball, same thing. Like learning all that stuff on how to beat a defender on my own, and then trying to play against my brothers who were bigger, they were faster, they were stronger. Like perfecting that stuff over the years, and now I get to like give it to the kids, and I get paid for it. Like I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at, and like I'm grateful that my wife didn't give up on me. So it's just that just shows that when you are uncomfortable, there's something that's right around the corner, and now my wife knows too. Like, all right, let's jump, let's do it, and so just trying to figure out how we can help as many kids as possible, because if they don't make it to the league, I want it to be because I'm not good enough, not because damn, no one showed me, no one told me how to do it. I didn't know anyone that was in the league. My brother couldn't tell me how to get there. My dad couldn't tell me how to get there. And it's like, I could tell you how to at least get that far, and now it's up to you to take that to the next level. So
that's dope, man.
Yeah,
man. Whenever I had seen a lot of your posts and stuff,
yeah,
I never really knew the story, and that Green Bay story, man, that just hits home, man. So I did an interview with Will Tukuafu, and his story was similar, but I think on his part, he was ready for his situation.
He was ready.
And so when I like think about like all the stuff that you went through, man, it just makes me like super happy to hear like how things happen. So for anyone who doesn't know, like I watch podcasts nonstop. Like I listen to all different types. I have like political podcasts I listen to.
Yeah.
Like conservative, left, like all types of stuff. And there was one quote that I remember. That there's a clip that a lot of people always use. Will Smith, and he was talking about whenever he was reading the book, The Alchemist. Have you read the book?
I've not.
So what he was saying is like it's crazy because when you make up your mind to do what you're most passionate about, the universe will somehow align you with the resources that you need to accomplish this. And you don't have the resources right now, but if you put one foot in front of the other, somehow, some way, those things happen. I don't know how they happen. I don't know how I'm here, but somehow it just works. And for all of you who feel like, oh, I can't be this guy, he's super great, or he's this, he's that, he's like, there's greatness in everyone.
Yeah.
And then, like, doing the things that I've done, like right now with the podcast, I'm not even an ounce of what I want to do. And I went and I was in Texas recording the episode, and the videographer that I go through, I was talking to him about an idea that I had, and I was saying, it's like, man, like I don't have the funds to do like this type of documentary thing I really want to do. And then he's like, oh, that's nothing. He's like, what? And then he's like, call this guy. I have a hookup with this guy and this and that. It's like I don't have any money. He's like, bro, you fly from Utah to Texas and only use me. He's like, that's a favor. Like, you could go to anyone, like, but you have followed me to every single studio that I've been through.
Yeah.
It's like, loyalty's huge with me. And so since you've stuck with me, boom, here are the connects.
Dang.
And I was just like, dang, I didn't even think about it. He's like, yeah. And so, like, the more I hear about other people's stories, it's like, it is really weird, but really cool to see how the universe aligns for people to succeed when you make the decision.
Yeah. And there's that's what's crazy too is I don't think that there's anything special with me. I think the biggest difference with me is that I actually went and did it. Mm-hmm. I think that there's so many people that have talent in whatever it is you do. The podcast here, it's like you'll never know unless you went and started it. We all just needed a little kickstart at first. But I think that once you start to see things fall into place, and when things aren't so scary after that first jump, it's like, okay, cool, like I can do this. It's I've seen another thing with Will Smith. He talks about trying to build this great wall, and I think if I were in this position a couple years back, thinking like, dang, how am I gonna get to be a trainer for a gym? It's so overwhelming when you look at it like that. Yeah. But he's saying the only thing you need to worry about is laying that one brick as good as you can. And it's the same thing as when you look at the problem or your dream, like if yours was, I want to be the best podcaster, I want to do this for a living. That could seem overwhelming, but it's like, all right, the first thing I got to do is just purchase the camera. Like if you break it down in its simplest form, anyone can really go and get it. And there's so much resources and opportunities for every single one of us to live the life that you want. It's just a matter of, a lot of people let fear stop them from doing it. Like, we're so worried about other people like making fun of you when you fail. Yeah. But in reality, it's like everyone's so busy doing their own thing. No one's worried about what you've got going on right now. Mm-hmm. And if they are, they have enough time to sit there and do that. Like, that's not your crowd. Yeah. I think that's what holds us back so much, is we're so worried about what other people think. Like when I left Freightliner, I knew I'm not supposed to go and sell truck parts. Like, these dudes would always come to the counter and like very disrespectful, because I don't know anything about car parts. And I'm like asking questions and like, how do you not know that? I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if that's not for you, if you're cool with making a living for your family, if that's your passion, then by all means go. But if you're somewhere that you don't want to be, you owe it to yourself and to your family, to your kids, to go and get it. Because you can really make a living doing something you love. But you gotta go and get it.
Awesome, man. I think our time is coming close to an end. I think I just wanna, man, thank you. Your story is awesome, man.
Thank you.
And with that being said, Fatu Moala in the Power Perception.